Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's exchange with Eunice. Eunice Obugyei. Hey,
Yes.
that's a good name, correct? Okay. So Eunice is a software engineer at DreamOval, and one thing amazing about Eunice is she's been able to author a book. She has a published book, and that's one of the things that I'm hoping that we'll be able to learn from her, a process. Yeah, because I do suspect that there are people amongst us who are interested in publishing books. Yeah. So again, welcome to Dev Exchange, Eunice.
Thank you.
Okay. So I would like you to introduce yourself to people who are watching you now.
Okay. My name is Eunice Obugyei. I'm a developer at DreamOval Limited. And as you mentioned, I recently co-authored an Android book, Android development with Kotlin book. Um, yes, that's basically it. I went to university at KNUST. I studied computer engineering. And before that, I schooled at St. Rose's Secondary School. Yeah.
Awesome. So can you share with us how it all started for you? How did you get into programming, and what are some of the things that you've been through to end up at where you are now?
Okay, so I got introduced to programming in SS, actually, in SS2. Um, a teacher entered a class one day and asked how many of us knew about um, computer programming. I had never heard it before, funny enough, I hadn't heard it before, but I liked my computer classes and I used to help some of my course mates during computer classes. So a friend mentioned that, okay, we should join together, that she would do it with me if I was nervous about doing it, which I'm mostly nervous about stuff. So I agreed and we joined the team. It was for a competition which was actually organized by AITI. AITI, yeah. So we went on to win the Eastern Regional competition, which was actually exciting for us because that was for most of us in the team was I've ever done key music after that. So yeah.
Hello?
Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you, Eunice.
oh, okay.
So
No,
we lost you for a couple of seconds over there.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's
So,
fine.
oh, okay, sure. So after that programming competition, all I knew was that I just wanted to code. I wasn't sure what course I would have to do in university, but I just knew that whatever it was, it has to do with coding. After SS, I found out that would be computer science, but my dad didn't agree with that. So, with the help of a cousin of mine who had just completed um, KNUST, we agreed that okay, then I'll go with computer engineering, which will still have some aspect of coding there. So I chose that one, and my dad agreed with it because of the engineering. So that was a way of tricking him into agreeing. Anyway, so that was how I ended up studying computer engineering.
Yeah, I don't know whether to say that was smart or that was something else. Yeah, but it got you the results that you needed, so
Yeah, it
it's
did.
it's good. It's good. So how
Yeah.
how was your experience? How was the experience like in computer engineering? Did you get the opportunity to write as much code as you would want, or it was more hardware related than software related?
Yeah, so there was networking and there was hardware. There wasn't really, I don't think we didn't do a lot of computer programming, right? Which was weird for me because I was excited going in because I thought, okay, there'll be a lot of programming, but in the end there wasn't that much. And majority of the things you end up
Hello? Eunice? Hello? Can you hear me, Eunice? Hello? Hello? We lost Eunice. I'm just gonna try and get her back on. Let's see. So watching it, you're gonna have to bear with us for technical difficulties today. Yeah, Eunice.
Yeah.
I think the network is a bit of an issue today.
Yeah. Well, I've forgetting where I was.
So I was asking, I think I was asking how computer engineering was like. Considering that you wanted to be.
Yeah. So yeah, there wasn't that much coding involved actually. Sad enough. Yeah. But and another thing was also that computer engineering doesn't have a lot of ladies in there. So yeah, there was that too. I think for a very long time, I have an older sister, right, and I have two younger siblings, two younger brothers, and the age gap between myself and my brother, the one who comes after me, is not it's quite huge. It's 6 years, right? So I think because of that, I was brought up like feeling like, okay, everything was normal. Then you go to school and you start to think, oh, okay, it's not as normal as that. Like there are things that girls don't think that they should probably do. So you sort of get into computer engineering and realize, wait, why are there that few ladies here? And then you start to hear about stuff like women in engineering. Then it's like, oh, okay, why have women in engineering? And then you ask questions and you start to hear that, okay, yes, because there are very few women willing to come into engineering for some reason, right? So there are all of those things that you sort of find out. I sort of found out in university, which was interesting, actually.
I see. So, did you get disappointed at some point because you wanted to write code and you weren't getting the opportunity to write code in computer engineering?
Oh yes, it was kind of disappointing. And it was also, and I think part of the disappointment was also with the fact that I realized there were majority of my mates weren't really interested in writing code.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. So far in your career, can you tell me about some of the high moments and your down moments? What are some of those kind of experiences that you've had?
Okay. So I think I usually count the high moments, right? I don't I just feel like
I think you're a very lively person, so you always focus on the
not really. Like I'm not the most happy person, but then I just feel like every day could be very crappy. So like majority of the time, the things that I count mostly as really exciting are the high moments. And for me, I think the biggest high moment is me finding out about is winning the competition in SS, right? And then after that, I think the next high moment for me was getting the internship at DreamOval, because at that time I really, really wanted an internship with a software engineering company, and all the ones that I had applied to, no one was getting back to me. And I was sort of getting an ultimatum from my dad that because like I did my internship with DreamOval in during my 3rd year long vacation, and before that, the year before that, I had done my internship with at the IT office for Gihok Distilleries. And it was a great opportunity, but then I felt like, okay, wait, I want to code, and that's not what you do in an IT office. So the next year, I really didn't want to do anything like that. I wanted to work with a software engineering company, and getting the opportunity to work with DreamOval was, first of all, like a surprise. It came as a surprise, and it was also like a really great opportunity, and probably like one of the, and it was the second best opportunity I had in my life, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Oh. So one of the things that I'm curious about is you interestingly you do Android, you do iOS,
Mm.
and I think you do some
Back
amount
end.
of back end development. Yeah, what I'm curious about is what your favorite programming language at this point is, and
Mm.
how you have navigated that landscape of learning one programming language and moving to the other, and to the next.
So right currently, I'm still stuck between is um Java and Kotlin. I'm still is those two languages are still like really great for me, right? Java because it's been there for me, and Kotlin because it's like it's this amazing and exciting language that I found out about by chance, and like I've really been excited about it. I talk about it in the office sometimes, right? And it was really exciting. So I still stick with Java, and so I'll stick with Java and Kotlin, like the two really. The two are probably my favorites. And when
Okay.
it comes to other languages that I've tried out Python before. And I mean, because of iOS, obviously I've done Swift and a little bit of Objective C. Yeah. And yeah, those, and I've done a little bit of Groovy, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah, for work. Yeah. So those are the languages.
Okay. Now you're sparking more curiosity and interest. How on earth, how on
Mm.
earth do you find Java so interesting to the point that it's nearing or it's almost your favorite programming language? How is that
Well,
possible?
well, that's because Java has always been there for me. When I started, well, in uni, we did. I think the first programming language we studied in university was C, and then that was very brutal. Like it was scary. Up to now, I've not been able to master the courage to go back and try out C. And then we did C++. Plus plus. It was a little better, but still kind of difficult for me. And then we did Java, and I thought, wait, this is way simpler than those previous two. And I think before we did Java as well, I had tried on my own to learn web development, and I came to the conclusion it was not for me because I sort of there's a lot of things with because it's sort of you have to work with JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, and at the time that was a very difficult sort of part to navigate, like, and a number of times because of CSS styling, a number of things with web development was around how creative you could be, and I don't consider myself as creative in that sense, right, in terms of design. So everything I ended up trying out sort of looked crappy to me, and it made me disappointed. So I sort of, when I found out about Java, I was like, oh, okay, I'm sticking with this one, and I sort of stuck with it up to today.
So out of all the mess you were exposed to,
Mm.
Java was comparably better. It's
Yeah, it was
understandable.
sort of easier. Yeah, and
Understandable.
and and also when I joined DreamOval, we use Java mostly for almost everything because of our enterprise products. So it was sort of like, yeah, that's what you're doing, and really, I stuck with it.
Interesting. Okay. And how has what's the history behind the IDs that you've used in the past?
So I don't even remember the ID I used when I was when we were in uni. I don't remember actually, but then I started using Eclipse when I came out of school in 2012 when I started doing my national service at DreamOval. I started using Eclipse for Android development because my first task was actually to work on a mobile app for my text buddy. So
Okay.
an Android mobile app for my text buddy. So it was the first ID I sort of remember, I can remember using. And it was difficult to use Eclipse. I don't know. I don't know if anybody who's used Eclipse and used it previously for Android development knows that like how difficult Eclipse is to use, especially with for Android development. Over the period when I had to do backend, I ended up using NetBeans.
Okay.
Office mentioned IntelliJ, and we argued with him about how we think it's probably the same as NetBeans. There's not such a big deal. And then and then I tried it out, and it's like, oh, okay, this is amazing, and it's way better than NetBeans. And since then, I've stuck with it, and yeah, like I mean, and since then, like and there's so much improvement all the time, right? JetBrains, they do an amazing job, like every new release has like some great new features, which is exciting. And they sort of got that with Android Studio as well. So I I don't remember the last time I used NetBeans. I've been using IntelliJ for a very long time.
I see. So what are some of the features of IntelliJ that is just like an upvote for you? What just blows you away?
So for me, recently they have they have the feature that sort of they correct you if there's anything that you're doing, anything in your code that is not, it shouldn't, you shouldn't do things in a particular way. It sort of gives you corrections it guides you to code better, basically, right? So for instance, stuff like, okay, there's something like when you are comparing a string, right, to a constant value within in your code, you're supposed to make sure that the constant value, you compare the variable to the constant value. So it's sort of like, okay, let's say I want to compare a variable to yes in my code, right? I have to make sure that what I know, the constant. So I say yes dot equals the variable, because that means that if the variable is null, then you wouldn't run into a null pointer exception. Like, and I found that within IntelliJ. I didn't learn that in school. I found out because of IntelliJ, because one time I wrote it wrong and I saw within my code that there was a suggestion to correct it.
Yeah.
And I learned those kind of things every day, right? Which is for me very exciting and really like a very good thing for an IDE to do.
Okay. Oh.
And it sort of make using Spring framework pretty easy, because there's some inbuilt functionalities that help with that. And I use Spring frameworks like a lot. So
okay. So I've heard about Spring MVC. I don't know what that is. Is a Spring framework the same as the Spring MVC?
I think we can actually get into that. Like that'll be a long distance. But Spring basically helps with enterprise development, Java enterprise development. So yeah.
I mean, the time that I was using Java, I was using Java with the Play framework. So when we talk about web development in Java, I just think about Play framework. But I know there is Spring MVC. I don't know whether even that is the correct thing. Yeah, but I know there is something like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I'm very much interested in is learning from you how you managed to, publish a book. Like you co-authored a book with someone. Can you help us? But I'm an aspiring author. And someday I want to, author a book. A technical book for that matter.
Okay. So to talk about so to talk about the book, I have to go way back to like 2015, right? So my boss, like our head of engineering at DreamOval, Henry Sampson, had always he kept talking about how we need to write blogs. We need to write blogs. And there was a point where he actually made it like a task. Like you have to write a blog and then send him the link to it. And he would read it. He made it like a compulsory thing at some point, right? So I think I wrote about 2 blog posts, and then I sort of realized my difficulty was that I couldn't come up with topics to write on. Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
I couldn't come up with topics to write on. So what happened was at that time I had started trying out iOS development because I needed to learn it for the to build the SlidePay iOS app. At that time we had only an Android app. We only had an Android app. So and I had used the Rewendelage website a number of times. But I didn't realize that it was multiple authors. I assumed because of the name that it was just Ray who was working on the tutorials. So I think I ended up on one of the pages and it was a call for authors. And I thought, okay, this would be an exciting opportunity. I'll be killing two birds with one stone, right? Because basically I would be learning iOS development by writing tutorials for it. And I will also be meeting the criteria meeting the sort of the task that Henry had put forth. So I sent an email to Ray about it, that I want to write for his site, and he responded saying that they weren't they have enough iOS tutorial writers, but since I seem to have a good Android background, it'll be great if I could join the Android team. So I did the tryout for it, and then I joined the Android team to write tutorials. I think my third or fourth tutorial, I was supposed to pick a topic, and one of the topics I saw was Introduction to Kotlin. And I had never heard of the language before. So I sent an email to the supervisor, the team lead, for the Android team lead at the time. And I told him, okay, I think I want to try that one. I want to try my hands at that tutorial because it's a new language and I have never heard of the language before, actually. But when I went to the website, it seemed interesting. And I had realized it was by JetBrains, which was amazing for me because I'm a huge fan of JetBrains. So like, okay, I want to do this. So I wrote the tutorial, and fast forward, I got somewhere last year, I got an email from an editor from Pax Publishing, and the person said they had seen my tutorials on Kotlin and would like me to work on a book with them. And that was how I ended up writing the book. So yeah.
Okay, awesome. So how was the process like?
So you sort of come up with an outline for the book. So the topics you want to touch on in the book, and what those topics will end up teaching the reader. And when that is signed off on, you go ahead and actually like start working on the books. So in my case, I did the outline. I decided I was going to end up with a number of applications, going to build a number of applications throughout the book. And that was how we went along.
Awesome. Another thing, what will you say about learning? How do you learn? Most importantly, how do you pick up a new programming language and learn and be productive in it?
Okay, so I've come to realize that for me personally, what works is if I have sort of an end result. So let's say if I wanted to let's say I wanted to learn iOS development, what I would start with is that I will pick an application I want to build, and then I will learn that way, because programming languages are huge and very broad. So what I've come to realize is that for me, it becomes a sort of a theoretical like venture when I'm just going through a book or something and trying to figure out one step at a time. That's why for my book, I worked on applications. Like the book is sort of divided into a number of sections, and each section ends up with you building an application, right? Because I realized for me personally, learning that way helps a lot. So that's how I usually learn. I pick something I want to build, and then I start from there. So for instance, recently I said I'm thinking of learning Angular, right? I want to try out JavaScript frameworks now. So I was actually thinking of an application that I could come up with, right? So yeah. I thought of a friend was used a to do list application, and I was thinking of
Yeah.
doing the same and using that to sort of learn how to build an application with Angular. So I learn better if I'm building something,
Okay.
because you can't learn everything within the language. So you sort of have to streamline it, and you
Okay.
learn as you do.
Cool. So as a follow up to that, what I
Mhm.
would like to find out is, is your posture of like the posture that you take when it comes to learning something? Is it of the view that you learn stuff just in time? You know, you learn it. You only learn something when you need it. Like, so you're learning this just in time at the time that you need it to do something, or you learn stuff or you learn technologies just in case you need it in the future.
Okay, I usually learn it as I when I need it.
Okay. Okay. So is there have you found yourself doing some, because I think you had to, so in this case you picked up Kotlin because you
Mhm.
had to write an article about it.
Yes, I had to write tutorial for it.
Okay. So when you have to work with something, or when you have something that you need to deliver,
Mhm.
then you find a need to actually learn what you don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, that is interesting. So personally, most of the time I'm obsessed about
Mhm.
what I don't know. Yeah. I'm that kind that is obsessed about, looking stupid, yeah, in a certain situation and feeling that, okay, you should know this, but you don't know this. I mean, thanks be to imposter syndrome. I mean, we all have it.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, we all have it actually. Yes, we all
Yeah.
have it. I think my problem with usually with trying to learn like new things all the time is that I get sort of I sometimes get obsessive about it, right? Because now it's like, okay, wait, then there's this new one, and then that, I think that's one of my biggest issues with, for instance,
Yeah.
JavaScript thing as well, right? JavaScript development. It's like, okay, wait, there's this new one. Okay, and there's this new one. Like, okay, which one am I supposed to learn? And and so because of that, I'd rather like stick to, okay, I need this one at the moment. So let me figure out that one. If I don't need it at the moment, then no, I would not, unless I find it extremely interesting. I would not try and figure it out. No.
Okay, cool. So I think for me, it's a bit of a mixture of both.
Mm,
There are times that I just want to widen my knowledge or
yeah.
broaden my knowledge. So I'll read about something just so that I know that this
Yeah.
is available. And I think recently somebody shared an article on the DevCongress Slack, group, and I think there was a small discussion on that where people were saying that they rather learn something just in time when they need
Mm,
that information.
yeah.
And others were also saying that, okay, to make sure that when you have a problem, you don't sound so overwhelmed or you don't feel so overwhelmed,
Yeah.
because it can be very, very overwhelming if you don't even know where to start.
Yes, that's
And
true.
how you know where to start is when you
It's
read
knowing your
wide.
options.
Yeah, you read wide, you know that, okay, this technology is there and it's solving this problem. And when you find yourself in such a problem, then
Yeah.
you reach out, okay, I read somewhere that there is a technology like, say, Angular that can
Yeah.
solve
That's
this
true.
problem that I currently have. And
That's true.
therefore, I'm going to go ahead to use it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think the general rule of thumb is don't just be obsessed about learning every day. And if you're a JavaScript developer, that is something that if you don't take care, you just
You get into a
you
cycle.
won't- yeah, you'll be very, very depressed. Yeah, because there's always something new coming out almost every week. Even every week is long. Like every day,
Every day.
there is something JS coming out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have a question. It seems like you have a lot of people who know you, you
Oh
know,
wow. Okay.
all over on YouTube, in the chat. They're saying stuff about you. Okay, I have a question from David, and David wants to know whether you have tried React Native or Ionic, and if you haven't, why not?
Okay, so I have tried Ionic before, but that was like I think in its very early stages. So it wasn't very. It seemed like it seemed promising, but not. It wasn't. I couldn't use it for what I needed to. I think it was for a hackathon, and I tried.
Yeah.
I tried it out during the hackathon. Like I wanted to see how that would work. That was at the time where like we didn't have enough developers at DreamOval to work on like the two different mobile apps that we had. So we're thinking of trying out. I wanted to try out an Ionic to see whether we could go with that option as opposed to building a native Android app and a native iOS app. And yeah, at the
Okay.
time it couldn't meet the criteria for it. Like I couldn't really use it. But
Oh.
and about React Native, I haven't tried it yet. But yeah, but I know that we ended up giving it as a task for the other mobile developers in the office to try it out rather, and they had good things to say about it, but we ended up still not going with that one because we are still a little, because when you have an application already live, it's sort of difficult to just switch around. You have to be careful with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. But have you tried React though?
No,
Why?
I don't think I've even heard of React. Okay, React, as in
Yeah.
JavaScript, normal, the
Yeah.
normal one, not the mobile. No, I haven't tried it. No, I
Okay.
haven't.
Okay.
I've tried
All right.
very
Cool.
few JavaScript frameworks actually. I
Oh,
haven't
okay.
really tried a lot of JavaScript.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense that you haven't actually tried React because you don't do front end stuff. You said your
No,
UI sucks, so
no,
you
my
don't do
UI
front end
really
stuff.
sucks. Yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
do front end.
Okay. Cool. So I think there's another question.
Okay.
Nana and Danny is asking how you go about writing on a particular topic.
This is something I learned from writing for Rewendellage, right? What usually I do is that you research on the topic and figure out and sort of structure your thoughts and decide on what do I really want to focus on for the person who is going to read my tutorial. So okay, do I want, if it's about introduction to Kotlin, what do I want the person to take away from that? And you have to sort of, I come up with an outline as to the different sections of the different sections that I'm going to have within my tutorial. Then I actually start writing on the topic.
Cool. Someone is interested in knowing where you see yourself in the next 5 years.
Oh wow, that topic is always scary. I I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
know where I see myself in the next 5 years. No, I don't know.
You don't
Yeah.
plan that far.
Uh, yeah, not really.
Okay, cool. There's another question on Slack.
Okay.
Someone wants to know. Let me see whether I can get the name. Question. Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to know what's your biggest professional success so far, and why do you consider that to be, a
Hmm.
success?
Biggest professional success. Probably that would be the book, because like I feel like it came out of nowhere, right? And I
Okay.
wasn't I wasn't actually expecting it. And when I got that
You never
email, like
expected
no,
it.
when I got the email, it was like really exciting. It was a really exciting moment. So I think
Yeah.
I'll put that as my biggest success so far.
Mm. Okay. It's another question from the same quick question. Yeah.
Okay.
He wants to know what tools and techniques you use when you're reviewing someone else's code, and where do you most put your focus?
Um okay, currently I don't review anybody's code. I don't that's not part of my role at the moment. But I would say that I will usually focus on, okay, does it meet the requirements of the application that the person was supposed to build, right? And if it
Yeah.
meets the requirements, you have to make sure that, okay, is there is testing does the testing is there, are there tests written for it, right? And whether the tests are running correctly. I think those are some of the things that I would look out for.
Okay, cool. I think we've gone into the chat for some time now, so I like at this point I want us to switch to the part where you share with us some knowledge, or you bless us with the knowledge that you have. So whatever you have prepared to share with us, we
Okay.
are ready to receive.
Okay. So I want to share my little knowledge on Docker, right? Because
Okay.
recently I had to learn Docker for work, right?
Docker
So
seems
yeah.
to be everywhere, you know. Nowadays,
Yeah.
Docker is everywhere.
Yeah. So yeah, so I want to share I prepared a presentation for it. So I would
Okay.
just okay. Okay, so okay, so as I said earlier, I recently started learning about Docker, and I found it like really amazing too, and it's really exciting learning about it. So my simple like explanation of what Docker does is that it helps you easily deploy and run applications within containers, and I'll sort of come back to that later on. And a container is basically is a runtime instance of an image, and an image is an executable package that includes everything needed to run an application, which would basically consist of like the OS. And for instance, if I wanted to run, if I have a Java application that I needed to run, right? I would the image will consist of the OS, the OS, Java, and then the jar that I need to run, like all together as a single package, a single executable package. So okay, and then when you run an image, that's a container. You run an image for to get the container. Okay, so what this is basically what the steps that you need to have a container up and running. You create a Docker file, and we will go through one very soon. You build an image from that Docker file, and then you can run the container from that image. Okay, so what a Docker file does is that it defines the container's environment, and this is an example of it. Okay, so for the first line basically specifies the base image of my container, right? So since it's a Java, the example I'm going to show is a Java application, right? So I used OpenJDK, and I think one of the things I found exciting about Docker is that it goes with the concept that we are all sort of building on what another person has done, right? So, for instance, someone has packaged Ubuntu, a minimal version of Ubuntu, and OpenJDK 8, and has called it OpenJDK 8 JDK Alpine, right? And I'm going to basically use that to run my application. And depending on whatever application it is, someone else could probably build on whichever image that I have. And one of the things that Docker does for you is that it basically makes your application portable. So if I build an image, I can have that image can be run by multiple people without worrying about, okay, how do I prepare my environment for to run the application? The person doesn't need to worry about it because the image contains the full environment. It contains everything needed to run the application. So this is the base image, and then now within the Java within the Docker file, you can specify an argument. So for instance, the jar file that this container is going to run, I'm going to pass the path to it on the host machine, the path to it on the machine that I'm going to build my Docker file on as an argument, and I'm calling the argument a jar file. So I'll pass it when I'm building the Docker file, the Docker image. And you can pass environment variables as well. And if you've ever written if you've worked on Java, that's like sometimes a big deal, right? Because if you are working on an application that requires, let's say, database connections, you don't necessarily always know what the database connection is. So for instance, if I run on my local machine, the database URL might have localhost within it. But if I move to an online server, we might not have the database server on the same machine, so it will have to change. So you can pass an environment variable to it. So I specify an environment variable here and call it Java var_s. Right here in this particular case, my application just it has one config. It will print out when we run it. You see what it has actually. So here, what happens is that it copy files from the machine that you are building your image onto the file system of the container. So here, what's happening is that based on the argument I will pass, it would copy the jar file into something called app.jar. It's just a file name it chooses. Then I specify the entry point, which is basically the command that it would use to run the application. And if you've run any Java application before, this will be familiar. Java, jar, then any sort of environment variables that you require, and then the jar that you're going to run. And then I expose the port that my application runs on. What that would do is that it means that whichever host machine that the container will be running on, you've exposed port 8080 from your container to it, so that it can listen from that port. Okay, so now let's go to you building an image. So before we continue, I have okay, let's continue. Okay, so this is to build your Docker image, right? So you run Docker build. T means you are tagging the image. So the name of the image that you generate will now be called Docker demo server image. And then you use build arg to pass any arguments that you need to pass in order to build your image. In this case, our jar file. So we pass the path to it, and that's it, and we run it. After running this command, you can run docker image ls to view all images on your local Docker image registry, which is whichever machine you run that command on. So let me pause and come back to. Hello.
Yeah, I'm here with you.
Yeah, so far is it okay? I want to share run the commands for you to
okay see. You want to open a terminal? That's
yeah.
Fine. Yeah, but so far so good.
Okay, so as you can see, this is our Docker the Docker file that we have, and I have within the directory that I'm in, I have the jar that I want to run. Okay, so now let's pick up.
So you're a diehard fan too for VS Code. You didn't mention that.
No, not really. I don't know. I use it.
I see.
Okay. So that's the command from the presentation, right? So, can you see the output clearly?
Yeah, I think. Can you zoom in a little bit? I see it okay, but I'm not sure. Maybe some people with low resolution might not see.
Okay.
think-
Oh. Looks like this is as much as I can get it. I
Okay,
sure.
it's fine. I think it shows all right. It shows.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like it basically goes through the steps within the, if you can see, it basically goes through the steps within the within specified in the Docker file. So it picks up step one and picks the parent and shows the parent, this thing is picking up the parent image. And then the next step, it's looking for the jar file argument. Then it goes to, so it goes through each of the steps. It goes through the steps one by one. Now, when I run Docker image ls, I can see my image there, and it shows that it was created 59 seconds ago, which was like basically, yeah, less than a minute ago as we ran the command, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's come back to, okay. So let's come back to this now. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we do is that since we've built our image, right, we can now run it. Okay. This is the command, the first, wow, this is a command for running your image. So Docker run, then the P part specifies it's used for port mapping. So if you remember from, sorry, from the Docker file, we exposed port 8080, which is the port that our application is running on the container. Now, what we're going to do is that we are going to map port 8080 to a port on the host machine so that we can basically access application from whichever machine we are running on, right? So we specify, so here we are mapping port 8080 from the container to port 4000 on my machine, which is the host machine. And we are naming that container that we're going to run docker underscore demo. And we specify the name of the image, which if you remember from here, we named it, we tagged it docker demo server image. So that's what we specify. We specify the name of the image here. So that's how you format it. Now the second command, right? What this one does is that if you remember from the Docker file, I mentioned something about having an environment variable passed. In the second command, it shows us how we can pass an environment variable in the run command. So we run both commands, and then since we are exposing, for the second one, we're exposing the same application on port 5050, and we'll see what the difference is. So sorry, I'm having bits. Okay. 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 So this is the first command that we saw, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So we run this one, and then let me run the second one just so we can go faster. Okay. This is the second one. Okay. Now when we run Doctor Doctor
You running
Container,
with that.
yeah, Doctor Container LS, we see that, yeah, we see that we have two containers running, one named Docker Demo, one named Docker Demo 2, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and then we see from here, it specifies what the port mapping is. So it specifies here that port 5050, port 8080 is mapped to port 5050, and then for the Docker demo, it specifies port 8080 is mapped to port 4000, right? Okay. So now we can check on, we can come back to this and, sorry. Okay. So when we hit port 4000, we see hello from Docker. So what our application is doing is that when you hit the home controller, what it does is that it basically picks up, it adds whatever you are passing as part of the environment variable, right? Whatever you pass to it, it adds it to hello from and prints it out. So if you remember from our what's it called? From our Docker file, our default environment value for Java verse, which is our environment variable, right, was Docker. So when we hit localhost 4000, it printed hello from Docker. Now, when we hit localhost 5050, it prints hello from DevCongress, right? If you remember from our command, from our second command, we passed DevCongress as the value of test.config, right? So we have two separate applications, right? And then they are returning different things based on how we run it. And what this means also is that, I mean, normally, if I was running a Java application on my machine, I'll probably then either run two jars, right? And I'll have to now specify, either pass the server.port separately to it. I can't just run a jar out of the box and then run it on separate ports. But because I have an image of it and I'm running those images as containers, what is happening now is that I can expose the ports, I can map the ports to different ports of my host machine, right? So I can have multiple instances of the same thing running, and they are hitting this different endpoints. Okay, so that's basically my little this thing on presentation on Docker.
Yeah, awesome. So what will you say so far? So far, what are your impressions of Docker?
So far I think is really great. It makes an application portable, and what I mean by that is, for instance, if I'm working for, let's say, a company outside of the country, right, and I need my supervisor or whoever to test an application, what I can do is I can push my Docker image, right, to a registry, and then that person can basically just run that application without worrying about, oh, do I have Java installed? Do I have this installed? They don't have to worry about the environment. They don't need to set up an environment to run my application, because I've created a Docker image of it. All they need is that if they have Docker running on any host machine, they can just run it, and it's sort of easier to. It makes it portable. That's really it. It makes your application portable.
Okay.
And it doesn't work just for Java. There's .NET parent images as well. So if you have a .NET application, you could do that. There's some for Python as well. So it's across board. And I can basically pick up a Mongo image and just run it without installing Mongo on my machine, which is something I've had to do recently. I can pick up my SQL image and just run it without worrying about actually downloading the full MySQL and setting it up, because when I run one command and it will do all of that. It will do the setup for me because they've created an environment already within the image.
I'm happy that you brought up MongoDB and MySQL. The question that I have for you is, do you think it's a bad idea to be running databases in a container or not?
I don't think it's a bad idea to run databases in a container. So far, the difficulty I've had with running a database in a container has to do with okay, if I rerun that container, will I still have my data if I already have data in it? And there's
Yeah.
a way around that. There's a way in which you map the data file path to the data file path within the container, so that at any point you actually have the data on the host machine. I haven't done it yet, but I know that it's a possibility. I have to try it out actually next week. It's something that I have to try out for work. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying that instead of, because whatever you put in a Docker container isn't supposed to, it, it you're not supposed to persist anything inside the container because it's ephemeral. Like
Yeah.
once you restart the container, that data is gone.
Yes.
And
So
so
you
the
can map
trick
it.
the
Yeah.
trick around that is mapping that file system, because if you're working with MySQL, what MySQL essentially is doing is saving that data to disk.
Yes.
So what you're saying is they have improved it or Docker to allow developers to be able to map to a certain, like a part of the file system on the host to
To
the
the
container so
container,
that
to a
the
particular
file gets
part.
saved.
Yes, so that
Okay,
you can do that. So yeah.
I see. All right. Let me see whether I have questions here for you concerning Docker and all the other things that we've talked about.
Okay.
Okay. And so people have expressed interest in having access to the slides. I hope it's okay for me to share the slides after.
Okay. So I updated the one I sent you earlier. So I'll forward the one I
Oh,
just
okay.
presented to you. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Let me see. Okay. So it seems you're in the clear. So there are no questions on YouTube. And
Okay.
so is that how people are? They are not
I think
following
maybe
it.
they probably got bored when I started when I did my presentation. Maybe.
You know, that was hardcore for them. So they said, okay,
Probably
okay.
got
This
bored.
thing is deleted so quickly. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, so let me see if. So for me, from where I am, like I think moving forward, what I'm very happy with
Mm-hmm.
is seeing you more at events. That's what I'll be happy with.
I'll definitely do my best to come for more events. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because you know a lot of things, and it is time for you to be active in the community and start sharing with the people in the
Yeah.
community. And I think it's also very inspiring for people to see, like especially for the women. I mean, you were talking about women in tech and
Yeah.
things like that. I think it's very inspiring for aspiring, you know, ladies who want to take up a career in programming and software development to see somebody that they can look up to and take inspiration from. And as a matter of fact, I have somebody on the YouTube chat saying that
Oh, okay.
you are you are his code mother. Yeah.
Wow. Who is that?
Yeah, somebody
What's the name?
Winifred. I don't know
Oh
whether
yes, yes. It's Winifred. Yes, I went with Winifred. Yes.
Okay. I don't know whether Winifred, so is Winifred Corte Papafield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So he's saying that you are his good mother. So you
Yes.
see.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winifred is my good daughter. That's true.
So I think Steven Brymer, I think he's your colleague. Yeah.
Yes.
He has a question for you. He's saying that what what do you think can be done to get more women in tech in
Hmm.
Ghana?
In Ghana.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say that one of the things I find amazing about what Ivy is that she's doing like really well with that, right? Her events are really amazing. She's doing well, so I think we can have more of such things for in the community, right? Give women great opportunities. Yeah, so because I think one of the difficulties also is that a lot of times we are mostly brought up, right? And it starts from the home, actually. We are brought up thinking that a number of things are for men and a number of things are there are certain things that are for women. But when it comes to like career path, I don't think that there's any specific thing that makes it more will make it easier for a guy to code than a lady to code. And I think we should make it more understandable. If you have younger siblings, or if you have a daughter, you should make them understand that it's not is there isn't any specific career that is for men and any specific career that is for women. And I think that was one of the things my dad did very well, right? So the only time I realized there was such disparity was when I went to university. Because growing up, if my dad I was helping my dad fix stuff in the house from when I was young, right? We did a whole bunch of stuff in the house together. And there wasn't anything about, oh, okay, you're a girl, so I won't let you do this. And I think that's some of the things that as young people who are growing, I think it would be great if you have younger siblings, or if you have children of your own, you help them understand that. And also you should help the boys also understand that, okay, you shouldn't sort of treat girls in a very specific way, like, okay, yeah, this is not for you. Like sometimes some guys behave in a very weird way, in that someone gets so shocked when they find out you're a developer. I'm like, why is that so shocking to you? Why should it be so surprising that you see a lady who is a developer? It starts to, I feel awkward if you sort of all of a sudden, you are then making me realize, oh, there's something weird about me because I'm a developer and I'm female.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the case. It should be a normal thing, right? And I think if you're also in a company, companies should have policies that sort of make, and I know that people don't always agree with this, but I think that sometimes giving a quota for having a number of females in your company will also be very helpful. Because at the end of the day, I think that one of the things that DreamOval did for me was that at the time that I was given the opportunity to do the internship, when I was going through the interview, I didn't think if I was the one sitting there, I don't think I would have given myself that opportunity. But I was given that opportunity, right? And so far, I don't think my boss will say that I've disappointed him, right? So I think sometimes it's okay to give people an opportunity, even if you don't think that they necessarily meet the highest form of criteria. Because if you don't start by giving people a certain level of opportunity, then it becomes difficult to have more people at that level. It doesn't mean that we should then just put people in a position which they don't completely qualify for, but you should sort of make the extra effort to find women to bring to your company. It will help with the overall environment.
Interesting. I think I agree with most of the things that you said, and I think one thing that I'm very is interesting. I mean, it's interesting in a funny way.
Yeah.
Is I think so. You are saying that if it's a lady who writes code, there's anything extraordinary about it, and I mean when you hear, just say it's normal, you know.
Yeah, let's try and be chill about it, because then it starts to be weird. It's like, yeah, so
well, maybe the person is just trying to say that, okay, women like attention, so let me pay more attention to her.
Wow.
Because she goes.
I'm not so sure that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's just, but I agree with you. Yeah. So there is Winifred is also saying that great presentation on how Docker works. Yeah. So I think people are appreciating the work that you have put into the presentation.
Oh,
okay. Yeah. So at this point, I don't think I have any question to ask, and there aren't any questions also on Slack. So I am going to release you so that you can go back to the things that you can go back and start your weekend. Unless you have any question for me.
No, actually.
Okay. In that case, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
for accepting to be a guest on the exchange. I've really learned a lot. Yeah, from starting to learn or program in senior high, and through writing a book, teaching me Docker. Yeah, a lot of knowledge to unpack. Yeah. Thank you so much, Eunice. And as I said, I'm going to be, I'll keep my eyes out for you. I want to hear your name pop up that you are at this event, you are here mentoring people, you are here giving a talk. Yeah, I want to see you participate in
Yeah,
or take a more active role in
in the
the
community.
community. Yeah,
Okay.
I think it will be very helpful.
Okay.
Mm. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Enjoy your weekend.
You too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.